About 3 million years ago, in the dusty steppe of East Africa, one ape did something that changed the course of history. It struck rock against rock and created the first tool. And so began the history of mankind and the Stone Age. Sure, it may not have looked as spectacular as it appears, but you get the gist of it. This is where our time begins, and the Stone Age remains one of the most important and longest periods in history. Today we'll be transported back to a time when the first humans struggled to survive, exploring their way of life and understanding why our modern world is so different from millions of years ago. But we'll also discover that many aspects of ancient people's lives have stayed with us to this day. Make yourself comfortable. You're in for an exciting journey back to the Stone Age. The Stone Age is not just one period. It covers more than 99% of all of human history. It began about 3 million years ago and ended only about 6000 BC, when man learned to work with metals. Imagine, for millions of years, our ancestors hunted and gathered food, all with stone tools, before they came to what we call civilization. To better understand this period, scientists divide it into 3 stages. Paleolithic, the Old Stone Age, the longest. It lasted from the beginning of the Stone Age to the end of the last Ice Age about 12,000 years ago. Mesolithic, a transitional period when the climate began to change and people adapted to the new conditions. Neolithic, the New Stone Age, a time when humanity gradually became farmers from hunter-gatherers. But what does this mean in practice? Let's look at how people lived at each of these stages. Let's start with the Paleolithic, the longest phase. It was then, about 3 million years ago, that the first members of the genus Homo, such as Homo habilis, began to use stone tools. These tools were primitive, ordinary stones that they used to crack nuts or cut open bones. We know that some modern apes, such as chimpanzees, also use similar primitive tools, so we can say that this was the very first step towards modern humans. But as time went on, technology improved. People learned to work stone more carefully, to make spear and arrowheads, and to make more sophisticated tools for hunting and building. Fire, which they learned to use about 1 million years ago, became a major factor in their survival. Fire kept them warm, protected them from predators, and, just as importantly, allowed them to begin cooking food. Fire also opened the way for humans to explore new territories. Thanks to fire and improved tools, our ancestors were able to survive in colder regions like Europe, where they migrated from Africa. They encountered Neanderthals there, another species of ancient humans who lived in Europe and Asia. This was the time when the first major migrations took place and humans began to explore almost the entire planet. The Stone Age is not just about technology, it is also a time when social structures were formed without which we could not survive. People lived in small tribes where everyone was related to each other. These tribes numbered no more than 100 to 150 people. More connections the human brain simply could not hold without special tools, like writing. The leader of the tribe was usually the most experienced, not the strongest person. Strangers were rarely accepted into the tribe, and if the tribe grew, it was divided and settled in new territories. Interestingly, archaeological evidence shows that tribal wars were rare in the Stone Age. Since people then had no property in the modern sense, they had nothing to divide. All man had were his tools, which could be made anew in a few hours. However, by the end of the Stone Age, when the transition to farming and herding began, warfare became more common. The first mass graves where we see evidence of battle wounds date from about 10,000 years ago in the Nile Valley. Now let's talk about what our ancestors ate. At the beginning of the Stone Age, man was a scavenger, as it was extremely difficult to compete with predators. But over time, humans learned the trick of using traps and long-range weapons to hunt large animals. Fire played a key role in this as well. It allowed not only for warmth, but also for cooking. The diet of the time was much healthier than our modern diet. Meals included lots of protein, fresh fruits and vegetables, but almost no fast carbohydrates, which are so common these days. We often can't stop eating sweets, but our ancestors simply didn't have access to sugar in its purest form. But the Stone Age wasn't just a struggle for survival. People had already begun to create art back then. The oldest cave paintings, flutes, and even the first burials, with elements of ritual, date back tens of thousands of years. This suggests that our ancestors had abstract ideas about the world, and perhaps the first religious beliefs. Neanderthals, for example, buried their dead with objects and jewelry, which may indicate that they had ideas about life after death. And Homo sapiens, the later inhabitants of the Stone Age, already had dancing, music, and primitive art. Toward the end of the Stone Age, around 7000 BC, the Neolithic revolution began. Humans first began farming and herding livestock. With the first settlements, technologies, and crafts, the Stone Age came to its logical conclusion, giving way to the Age of Metals. But despite this leap, some peoples still live in conditions similar to the Stone Age, and some animal species, such as chimpanzees, have already entered their own Stone Age. Here we have come to the end of our journey into the Stone Age. This vast and amazing period laid the foundations for all of our modern life. If you enjoyed this video and want to learn more about ancient history, give us a like and subscribe to our channel. See you in new episodes.